Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, President, Madam Minister, ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament. I will just add to what Mr. Juncker, President Juncker, has said. The British negotiators passed on their proposals to us. They have a competent and professional team. I think it's important to make that point. They have explained the situation to us. They have clarified a number of points. We have asked a lot of questions in the technical meetings that have been going on for the last few days. To put things very frankly, though, and to try and be objective, at this particular point, we are not really in a position where we are able to find an agreement. As you have said, President Sassoli, in a very clear and forceful way, on behalf of the Parliament to Prime Minister Johnson. The thing is, though, time is pressing. We are 1 week away from the European Council summit and just a few days away from the date of October 31st, which was agreed with the previous government to be the exit date of the UK from the EU in an orderly manner, which, as you have said, is much better than a disorderly exit. Now, why are we not in a position to reach a deal yet? The British proposals have led to 3 serious concerns. First of all, the issue of the border and checks on goods on the island of Ireland. Prime Minister Johnson has always been very clear in rejecting the backstop, which is a sort of insurance, a safety net that we had come to an agreement with Theresa May's government. So that's one point. Prime Minister Johnson acknowledges that regulatory alignment for goods is necessary between Northern Ireland and the EU. We agree on this point. But in order to resolve the issue of customs checks, the UK is simply proposing that together in the protocol, in the international treaty that we will have between us, simply to take measures so that we avoid any kind of physical infrastructure or checks on the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Obviously, we also want to achieve this objective. This is one of the objectives of the backstop, to avoid having this border or this infrastructure on the border. But what we're being asked for in reality is to accept a system that hasn't been properly developed, that hasn't been tested. There'll be controls spread out across Ireland, and it will largely be based on exemptions and derogations on technology that has yet to be developed, changes to international law through the Common Transit Convention, and a new compliance system, but with none of the guarantees that should be set out in this protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, what we need when it comes, we need to have the integrity of the single market and the customs union, and at the borders, we need to have proper, rigorous checks all along our external border, along the external border of the single market. In Northern Ireland, as in any other area, we need operational, real controls, credible controls. We're talking about the credibility of the single market here, its credibility to consumers, to companies, and of course third countries that we negotiate agreements with. Let's not forget them. So that's the first point of disagreement. Secondly, what we need to find are legally operational solutions. Through the protocol, we established a safety net which clarified the regime that would be applied in Ireland This safety net is something which is legally operational because it would be in force until we found a deal or an alternative solution. By choosing to take away that safety net, by taking away the backstop and looking for alternative solutions during the transit period, so later on, the British proposal does not give us that same security, that safety net we have in the backstop. There are no real solutions for SMEs, for example, in the British alternative proposal, apart from a general derogation. Secondly, what would happen if we have this joint committee set up as the British wish, where we would send all of these issues that can't be resolved? What would happen if this joint committee can't find a solution during the transition period? The solution would then depend on the adoption of unilateral measures that would be taken by the UK or by the European Union. There would, of course, then be a significant risk to the integrity of the single market, because the UK proposals would want us to have no checks whatsoever between Ireland and Northern Ireland, which are going to become two different jurisdictions. The third point of disagreement, as things currently stand, is the British proposal on consent. We have found it a very regrettable situation that Stormont has been suspended over the last 2.5 years without them having a full voice in our negotiations. We have set out mechanisms together with the British to ensure representation of Northern Ireland. We are looking at a more important role for the Northern Irish institutions to ensure that the Good Friday Belfast Agreement is respected. Unfortunately, the British proposal, as it stands, simply has the implementation of the protocol based on a unilateral decision from the Northern Irish authorities, who could decide right from the very start, so the day after the ratification of your assembly for the withdrawal agreement, the Northern Irish authorities could unilaterally decide simply not to activate the proposed solution for Northern Ireland. Even if it were to be implemented, every 4 years they could call this into question. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, the proposal of the British government, as things stand, is not something we can accept. It replaces an operational, practical, legal solution by one that is simply a temporary solution. There are other issues which are of concern, not with the withdrawal agreement, but with the political declaration, which goes alongside and is very important because it describes the steps that will follow after Brexit. We hope with a deal, but even without a deal, we will have to rebuild everything that has been pulled apart. 44 years of integration and cooperation. We will have to rebuild our relationship in all these different areas: trade, university, aviation, fisheries, judicial cooperation, security. We are trying to set out what this future relationship will look like together with the British government in this political declaration. The Prime Minister is asking us to simply focus on a very basic free trade agreement and no other options which we had left open in the political declaration. He's also asked us to take out references which we'd agreed with Theresa May on a very important point, which is the level playing field. So having some basic rules in place. A basic sense of fairness, of loyalty, of rules for labour, for the environment, for consumer protection. So that is what we're being asked to do. So this is the request that we have, and what that leaves us is the risk of having just a very basic free trade agreement where there is regulatory competition, perhaps social dumping, environmental dumping, tax dumping. So on this particular point, I think when we look at our future free trade agreement with the UK, that is going to have to be proportional in terms of the commitment made by the British government to have a fair and level playing field. I don't think anyone in London or anywhere else should be surprised that the EU is committed to getting operational, legally sound and sustainable solutions in this agreement. Why? Well, it's very simple. Brexit, when it happens, that is something that's long-term. I have been saying this for 3 years now. Brexit is creating specific, serious problems, first and foremost in Ireland. So when we deal with these very immediate, serious and specific problems, what we need is today operational, legally binding solutions, not tomorrow, not in the future, and they need to be solutions for both parties here. So in this moment where we are now, we will remain calm, we will remain vigilant, and we will remain constructive, and we will be respectful of the United Kingdom and those who lead it. That is our approach, and we hope with this attitude on both sides, we will be able to come to an agreement that works for everyone. My team, our team, will be permanently cooperating with the European Parliament, with the Brexit steering group. I would like to thank in particular Guy Verhofstadt. And together with all of the member states, we will be available 24/7 in the upcoming days to try and reach an agreement. That is the approach I will take when I meet the Minister Steve Barclay tomorrow. I will very carefully respect my mandate as was given to me. Also bear in mind the resolutions taken by the European Parliament, which are also very important for me. So we will continue to work in that vein. Even though it might be very difficult for all of the reasons I've previously enumerated, I think if there is goodwill on both sides, an agreement is still possible. Thank you.
Thank you.